Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Credit Card Reduction Strategies, How to Get Out of Debt Faster. My name is Josh Strittmatter. I am your instructor today. And a little bit about myself. I have been teaching at UTA since 2010. I'm part of their continuing education program. But by day, I'm a financial planner. I have my own financial planning practice called Strittmatter Wealth Management Group. I've been a financial advisor since 2003. I'm a certified financial planner as well as a certified retirement counselor. A little bit of a disclaimer before we get started. All of the information today is meant to be purely educational. So please talk to your tax and legal advisor before taking any action on any tax or legal information you hear today. This is our outline for today's presentation. So we're going to talk about the 6 ways to pay off debt. And as we go along, you're welcome to ask any questions that you have. If you type it into the chat, it'll pop up on my screen and I will answer your questions as we go along. Also, if you have any questions at the end, I'll stick around at the end to answer any questions. And then lastly, we'll be recording this today and then sending you a copy of it for you to watch. And you're welcome to watch that and forward that to whoever you like. But I hope you enjoy today's presentation. So jumping right in. How do I pay off debt with the Avalanche Method? So we have 6 methods of paying off debt. First of all, we're going to talk about the Avalanche Method. And the Avalanche Method is a way to pay off your debt the fastest. And essentially how it works, folks, is you take all your debts and you line them up by interest rates. And so with this method, you're going to pay the highest interest rate debt first and make the most payment towards that debt. The rest of your debts, you're going to make minimum payments towards. So whatever the minimum payment that is allowed, you would make that payment on those. And then whatever additional dollars that you have to pay down your debt would be paid towards that highest interest rate debt. And so if you have an example of 4 different debts here, you can see they vary in terms of amounts and interest rates. So you see here, a credit card interest rate is 20%. That's where you would start, and you would make the most payments towards that card. Then the next would be the 9% personal loan. So after the credit card loan is paid off, then you would take all those additional dollars that you were using to pay off the credit card loan and apply them to the personal loan, the next highest interest rate. Then after the personal loan is paid off, you would then put all of those dollars towards the student loan, and then lastly, the auto loan. So you'd essentially be paying off debt in this order. So this is the fastest way to pay off your debt, folks. And it has pros and cons. Pro is that you pay off the debt faster with the least amount of interest. And by the way, it's also the way to pay the least amount of interest. The disadvantage is that it may feel like it's taking longer compared to the snowball debt method, which we're about to talk about, and therefore may be less motivating. And we'll talk about why in just a second. So that is the Avalanche Method. Let's talk about the snowball method. The snowball method is where you line up your debts by the balances rather than the interest rates. So you pay the largest balance off first. You pay the smallest balance off first, and then you work towards the highest balance. And so back to this example, the smallest balance is the $4,000, then you go $6,000, $14,000, then $20,000, just in that order. And the idea here is that you feel like you're making progress faster because you're getting rid of debt, these smaller debts, and then moving on to the next smaller debt. And again, it just makes you feel like you're eliminating debts faster. However, you will pay more interest over time compared to the Avalanche Method, which will also take longer to pay off the debt. So the Avalanche Method is what's recommended, but certainly the snowball method is used quite often. Next is, how do I pay off debt with balance transfers? So lots of folks, they get these mailers in the mail that have offers for low interest rates or no interest rate credit cards. And so those can be valuable. Those can help you if you use them correctly. And so steps to take advantage of this method are to make a list of all your debts, determine how much money that you would like to transfer, and then apply for the new card and transfer the existing balance to the new card with a lower interest rate. And then once you've paid off your new card, try to have the debt paid off before that offer expires. So often those expire after 6 months or a year. So your goal would be to have it paid off before it expires. But if you can't do that, then you would simply transfer it to another low interest rate credit card offer. Things to consider here is be careful to avoid spending money on the old credit card so that you don't go back into debt on that card and thus have more debt. Be aware of transfer fees. Sometimes these have transfer fees, so you want to make sure that you understand what those fees are. And then again, if the offer runs out before the debt does, you can just transfer it to another low interest offer. How do I pay off credit cards with personal loan? So another alternative to pay off credit card debt is using a personal loan. And in doing so, you can research online to see what loan offers are out there, and then see what has the lowest interest rate, see which has the best terms. And then you can apply for that loan and see what you're eligible to receive, and then basically use the loan proceeds to pay off the credit card debt. And so the benefit of this is that you're consolidating credit card debt with a personal loan, and this can help your credit score, number one. You have one payment versus several payments if you have lots of different credit cards. And then a low interest rate can save you money over time. So oftentimes when you get a low personal loan with a low interest rate, that's oftentimes much less expensive, or it has a much lower rate than your credit cards. So this is a great strategy. Remember some key points. If you're going to close the credit cards you pay off, this is going to affect your credit score, but it's temporary. So your credit score will go back up over time. Be sure and get on a budget and pay with debit cards or cash. And so one of the things that I teach is using debit cards rather than credit cards, because credit cards a lot of times don't have any maximums in terms of what you can spend, or they're very high if they do. Whereas debit cards, the only thing that you can spend is the amount of money that's in the account. So it's a more effective budgeting technique. And be sure to make your payments on time. And then lastly, don't go back into credit card debt. So, don't rack up those credit cards again and thus again have more debt. How do I pay off debt with a debt settlement? This is another methodology. So a debt settlement is basically a negotiated payoff. This is where you call the different companies that you have debts with, or you hire a debt negotiator and basically settle your debt for a certain dollar amount. So steps for doing this is that you would take a look at all your debts and assess if you're able to continue to make payments. If you think you can pay your debts on time and it's doable, then this would be an option for you. If you want to do it yourself, you would contact each debt company and let them know that you would like to negotiate a debt settlement. Understand it may take some time to get through the process, so be patient and polite. Once you reach an agreement, get it in writing, and then simply follow that debt payoff program and pay off the debt over time. If you're working with a debt settlement company, you want to make sure you do some research to find a quality debt settlement company. So I would recommend looking at the Better Business Bureau to see if they have any complaints, and Google reviews, things like that. Just make sure it's a reputable company. Determine what each company charges, timeline, and review their contract. Make sure you understand exactly what you're getting. Once you've made your decision, hire the company and let them take it from there. So they would basically take over. They would call and negotiate on your behalf for the lower payment. And so, and then you would just get on that payment program. So keep in mind that a debt settlement is negotiating for a lower payoff with companies usually due to extenuating circumstances, such as a job loss, disability, or death. So they're reducing the interest that they're charging you, or they're reducing the debt because of those circumstances. So this can be helpful to you, but keep in mind that it can affect your credit score. This will reduce your credit score, and it may keep that credit score low for a long period of time. So this is kind of the step before you would file for bankruptcy, is a debt settlement. So again, you have some extenuating circumstances where your ability to make payments, the full payments, has been compromised, but you don't necessarily want to file for bankruptcy. A debt settlement is that step before you file for bankruptcy. So if you're to a point where you've tried debt settlement and it doesn't look like it's going to work for you, then bankruptcy might be the best option for you. And so again, a last resort method, because this has a negative impact on your credit score, and this can affect your ability to borrow money for years to come. So you don't want to take this decision lightly. But if you come to the conclusion that you do want to file for bankruptcy, the way that you would do that is you'd review your debt and your debt payment options. Once you've decided that the other payoff options won't work, then bankruptcy may be your best option. So you would then hire a bankruptcy attorney. You can check with your local bar association for referrals. And again, I would go online and look at reviews or even get references. Once you've hired the attorney, they will request all of your financial information. You'll have to fill out a packet with all your information, and then they'll file for bankruptcy in the federal court system. Depending on the type of bankruptcy you file, you'll either be required to make monthly payments, or they'll just wipe out your debt completely. And that's based on the type of bankruptcy that you file for. So there's two chapter bankruptcies, Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. And the first one, the Chapter 7, is where they wipe your debt completely clean. So you'd have no payment from that point forward. But this is the bankruptcy that may require you to return an automobile. So just return assets that you purchased on credit. They will negotiate for that. Chapter 13 allows you to retain assets, but you'll be making a payment. So they'll put you on a payment program, and that's a number of years, typically 3 to 5 years. And then you'll be responsible for making that payment. Both cases, you'll be required to take a financial responsibility class where you will learn how to budget. And so it goes beyond just, show up for court. There's other responsibilities that they'll require you to do. Also, this can be a stressful process. So, again, don't take this decision lightly. Make sure you get some good advice from a financial representative. Remember, a bankruptcy attorney, their job is to sell you bankruptcy. So that's not the best person to get advice from, whether or not to file for bankruptcy. I would talk to a financial professional, somebody that can help you make that decision before you talk to the attorney. One of the things that is important to help you to stay out of debt and to really learn how to manage your cash effectively is having a system in place. So a cash management strategy is a system that manages your cash flow. A lot of people, they go from paycheck to paycheck, and they really don't have a plan for how they pay their bills or how they pay down debt or even save money and save money for emergencies. So a cash management strategy is a way for you to do that. I'm going to flip out of this presentation. I have one that I'm going to show you. Bear with me one moment here. This is something that we teach to all of our clients. I'm going to try to get it out of, make it to where you can see it in the full screen mode here. Well, that didn't get as big as I wanted it. So let me try one more way here. There we go. So this is the cash management strategy. And essentially what this is, folks, is a way to help you to pay your bills. It's a way to help you to budget. It's a way to help you to save money. And then it's a way to help you to have money set aside for expenses in the future. And so the way that this works is, first of all, it looks at how you pay yourself. So when most people get paid, they pay themselves, or their money goes into their checking account where they pay their bills out of. And so money comes in, they pay their bills, whatever's left over is what they live off of. This strategy is a little bit different. This has a buffer account in it. A buffer account means that money is going into that account first, and then it goes to your checking account where you pay your bills. We call that the accumulation account. The accumulation account is a checking account. And so this is where you would direct deposit all your income sources, things like W-2, 1099, pension, Social Security income. All of that income would go into this account. And then on the first of the month, you would auto transfer 1 month's worth of your expenses. And so that would go into your bill pay account, your checking account, number 2 in this example. And so then what would happen is on the 3rd of the month, you would pay all your bills. And I recommend paying all your bills using your online bill pay feature through your bank. It's a free service that each bank has. It allows you to set up all the vendors that you make payments to. And then in doing so, you can set them up to auto pay for the ones that are recurring. And then if they don't allow you to pay on that date or by that date, you can change the due date on most bills. So the idea here is that this is a budgeting technique. If I pay all my bills at the beginning of the month, then what's left over is what I'm going to live off of. It also makes life very easy in that you don't have bills coming in throughout the month that you have to keep writing checks for. You can just take care of all of your bills at the beginning of the month. And then again, what's left over is what you live off of. So let me back up and explain a couple of ideas here, folks. What is the purpose of the accumulation account? Well, so the accumulation account is a way to help you save a great deal of money. So what happens is people work and they earn income, and that income grows over time. People will acclimate to those pay increases. So for a lot of people, as they grow in their careers, they make more and more money. They therefore grow their lifestyle, so they start spending more money. The accumulation account is a way to lock in your lifestyle. So let me give you an example. Let's say that your income is $5,000 per month. So this is your net take home is $5,000 per month. And that $5,000 would come into this account. And then on the first of the month, it would transfer out to this account. But let's say that you now get a pay raise. Let's say that you now make $5,100 a month. So $5,100 a month comes into the accumulation account, but then $5,000 transfers to the bill pay account. And again, that's an auto transfer that you set up through your bank. So $100 accumulates in the accumulation account. And as you can imagine, over time, that can build to a substantial value. The other way that this builds is through, depending on how you're paid, if you get paid 26 times a year, that's 2 extra paychecks per year that you receive. Often people somehow spend that money, but it is indeed 2 extra paychecks. So those can accumulate in this account. If you get overtime, that can accumulate in this account. If you get bonuses, those can accumulate in this account. So the accumulation account is a very effective tool to help you to lock in your lifestyle and to save quite a bit of money. I've had people tell me for years how they've never saved so much money in their life just by setting up this buffer account. The other thing I would tell you folks is that if you have kids, you should teach them this methodology because it's a way to help them to save quite a bit of money too. The second part of that, again, through the playing through your bank's online bill pay, is a budgeting technique. It basically allows you to pay all your bills at the beginning of the month, and then whatever's left over, you have to live off of. What this assumes, though, is that you have enough money to do that. And so to make this strategy work, you have to have 1 month's worth of your expenses saved. And then you would seed this accumulation account for 1 month's worth of your expenses. And then what would happen is on the first of the month, 1 month worth of expenses would transfer over. So back to that example of $5,000. And then throughout the rest of the month, your your paychecks or whatever funding that's coming in would replenish that account so that by the next month, you'd have that money saved again. So takeaways are you've got to seed your accumulation account for 1 month's worth of expenses. You need to set up that auto transfer on the first in this example for $5,000, whatever your monthly expenses are. And then you need to set up all your vendors through your online bill pay feature through your bank, and then set them up to auto pay on the third, or for you to at least go on there and pay. Now I say the third, this can be, this could be the 28th, this could be the 30th, whatever day is best for you. But the idea is that it's around either the end of the month or the beginning of the month. So that's the first part. Oops, let's see. The next part of this is how you save and pay your bills. And so it involves a series of accounts. We have 3 savings accounts and then 2 additional checking accounts, depending on your situation. And then a credit card if you have a credit card and a fuel card. So let me walk you through these. So the savings accounts are accounts for, first of all, an emergency reserve. These are for unexpected expenses. I have found that the main reason why people go into debt is because they don't have any money saved for emergencies, typically. So typically what's recommended to save for emergencies is anywhere from 3 to 12 months of your monthly expenses. So back to that $5,000 example, that might be anywhere from $15,000 to $60,000 that you save to this account. And so again, this money is for unexpected expenses if you become ill, if you have a car wreck, if you get laid off, something like that. This money serves that purpose of basically being able to pay your bills. And so a lot of people will say, Josh, I don't have that much money. Well, you have to start somewhere. So you set the account up, and then on the 3rd of the month, you set up an auto transfer to this savings account for whatever budgeted amount that you want to use to save monthly. So maybe it's $100, maybe it's $1,000, whatever it is, whatever works best for you, you'd save to this account systematically. And so the idea there is that you're always saving to your emergency reserve. Notice the arrow also goes up on this. You have an arrow going down, but you also have an arrow going up. And so the idea is that if you have an emergency, you can just simply transfer back from that savings account to your bill pay account to pay for that emergency. And so that's a very convenient way for helping you save for the emergency reserve. Next is the expense account. These are expected expenses. These are typically expenses that people don't budget for. So things like property taxes, insurance, travel, and gifts. Now, if you have a mortgage, a lot of times you'll pay for your property taxes and insurance through your mortgage, so you may not need to save for that. But things like travel and gifts, those are all examples of things that can break a budget. So the idea here again is you tally up what those annual amounts are, you divide by 12, and then on the 3rd of the month, you save 1/12 to that account. Then when those expenses come due, you simply transfer back to the bill pay account and you pay that expense. The third savings account is the car fund account. The car fund account is an account that's used to help you to save money for cars. So what's happened here in the last few years is that car companies have done a fantastic job of making you think about a car payment rather than the cost of the car. And so they talk about affordability for the payment, but not for the car. For many people, if they had to go write a check for $60,000 for a car, they might think twice about writing that check. But because they make it a payment, that makes it simple to think about, and it's easy to write that check. So the car fund is a way for you to save and pay cash for cars. And so basically what you do is you determine the level of car or the price of the car that you want to buy. You divide that by however many months it's going to be until you buy that car. And then you simply make that payment into the car fund. And so 1 month of that is automatically transferred into the third into this account. Then once you have that money saved, you then have enough money to pay cash for the car. Now this has a couple of dual benefits as well. The first is that number one, it spaces out your cars. So a lot of people get in the habit of replacing cars every 3 to 5 years, where a car can last much longer than that. And so by setting a goal of saving for every 5 to 10 years, whatever your goal is, into this account, it prevents you from going and paying for that car prematurely. The other ancillary benefit that it has is that if your car breaks down, this is a place where you can go get funding to pay for the repairs of that car. And so the advantage of that is that you'll have the money available. You don't have to put it on a credit card. But secondly, is that because you're paying for a repair for that car, you're essentially extending the life of that car. And in doing so, you can continue to make payments on your car fund until you have the amount of cash needed to pay for the entire price of a new car or a used car, whatever you're buying, at a later date. So again, it allows you to have money set aside for any repairs, but at the same time, it also pushes out that date so that you can use your car even longer. Hopefully that made sense to you. The next two accounts are checking accounts, and these are used for budgeting purposes, and we call them allowance accounts. So an allowance account is basically a checking account where you have a debit card. And so it's used for discretionary spending, things like eating out, groceries, clothing. And what a lot of people will do is they'll use their credit card for these things, and they'll use it throughout the week. And as I mentioned earlier, it's really hard to budget with a credit card. So, but it's also hard to budget from your bill pay account. So a lot of people will have their debit card off of their main bill pay account. So what this methodology does is it takes whatever's left over after you paid all your bills and also after you've saved all your money, and it divvies it up. So if you're single, you just need one. So you would divide that amount that's left over by the number of weeks. So maybe 4 weeks or 5 weeks, whatever you want to do. And you would just simply make an automatic transfer into that checking account each week for that dollar amount. And so the idea is that every week I have an allotted amount of money that I get to spend on discretionary spending. And then once I get to the end of that money, I just have to wait till next week. My wife and I have done this for many, many years, and we've had a kind of ongoing joke about when we run out of money, we'll say, well, I just have to wait till Monday and then I get paid again. So it's a great budgeting technique, folks. It takes getting used to, but it will help you save a lot of money. Now, a lot of people will bring up the fact that they don't think that debit cards are safe. Remember, folks, that you can use a debit card as a credit card. So you don't have to type in a PIN. You can select the credit payment election when you're paying with the debit card, and it treats it like a credit card. So you have the same protections that you have with a credit card when you pay with a debit card as a credit card. And you can talk to your banker about how that works. If there's two of you, then you would each have an account. And, you know, I always joke, my wife gets a whole lot more allowance than I do, but that's because she's buying groceries. She takes care of our 3 daughters with the money. I just use mine to eat lunch sometimes, and I barely ever use my money. So again, you know, it's something you're going to have to tweak and get used to, but it's very effective. Next is your credit card. So I have a saying is to leave home without it. So unlike American Express, I want you to leave home without your credit card and only use it for certain purposes. So use it for recurring expenses, things like phone bills, Netflix. And again, the reason why you would do this is you get the points. Points can be lucrative for you, but also it helps your credit rating, to grow your credit rating. If you're always paying your credit card off every month, that helps your credit rating. So determine which bills can be paid with a credit card that are recurring, and then use your credit card for those recurring expenses. The other thing that we use our credit card for is travel. And so with travel, you can often earn a lot of points and use a lot of points for travel. And so we save to the expense account. And then when we use the credit card, we pay off that credit card by transferring from the expense account to the bill pay account, and then just simply pay the bill for the credit card from the bill pay account. And that's how you can budget for your travel. Lastly, because we don't carry our credit cards with us, we use fuel cards. Fuel cards or fuel, I should say, is a little bit harder to budget for from month to month because it just changes so much, especially right now. So a fuel card is something that you can put in place that only allows you to buy fuel. And so something that I've done, so first of all, I used an Exxon Mobil card for a lot of years, but Exxon Mobil is kind of expensive and I'm pretty frugal. So I figured out that you can get a fleet card through Murphy, and there's other companies that offer this, but so I have a fleet card I have two daughters that drive and a wife that drives and myself. And so the four of us have fleet cards that we use. And the advantage of that is that you can, it's only can be used for gas. But secondly, is that you get a nice report to see who's paying for gas and where. So it has some nice reporting features for you. And then again, just like your other bills, you pay that bill off at the beginning of the month. So that gives you the ability to provide funding for gas if you want to do that. Now, some people don't want to do that for their kids. They want their kids to do that on their own, and I certainly understand that. But for us, it was convenient to do it this way. So, seems like a lot, but I will tell you this system will change your life, folks, if you will implement this. And again, you're going to get this as a recorded version, so you can watch this again. And again, I would emphasize to teach this to your kids if you have kids. This is something that is hugely beneficial for young people to get started early in life and to get that going. Okay, let me get us back to our presentation here. And just a couple more things and we'll wrap up. Let's see, was there anything else on here? Yep, so we just talked about the cash management strategy. Okay, folks, that's all. So I hope you've enjoyed today's presentation. If you have questions, you're welcome to call my office at 817-210-3444, or you're welcome to email us at info@strittmatterwealth.com. As I mentioned, we'll be sending out an email with a replay of today's presentation. It'll have some free information on there as well. We have an organizer that we send out. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. I'm going to stick around for any questions. Let me stop recording.